Hello and welcome to my new YouTube channel about data analytics. My name is Chris and I've been doing this for about 15 years now. I've had the title of a data analyst for about 10, but pretty much everything I've done has been the same for the last 15 years. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I really want to use this introduction video to talk a little bit about what a data analyst does. So data analytics for the corporate world today is really a catch-all term. It's kind of like for a business analyst, you do a lot of business operations tasks. It could be kind of like a junior project manager. It could be that you are translating between a business segment and like an IT segment, and so you use a business analyst in the middle. For a data analyst, it is a little bit of a catch-all term as well. Anything to do with data all throughout the process of how we acquire data and we transform it and put it into warehouses. We take it back out, we turn it into information, we change it into visualizations and create reports, and then we communicate those reports and those facts and figures to our end users to create business value. All along that process, data analysts could be involved. A senior data analyst like myself has been involved pretty much in that entire process. I've created databases, I've created applications that deal with data, I've housed data myself, come up with schemas, designed ETLs, I've created various different types of reports, I've explored visualizations, and most importantly, my very chief responsibility is to communicate the information to my end users so that they can make better business decisions. So if all of these things are what data analysts do, then what technologies are we experts at? Well, there are a couple things that we're experts at, but for the most part, we are kind of a jack of all trades and master of none situation. We do need to be very well versed in Excel, and that doesn't mean that you just need to know how to make a pivot table and do a VLOOKUP. In Excel, for a data analyst, that is our lowest common denominator tool and the tool that almost across the board you will see people using. This is because for quick and dirty analytics, for checking information, doing very, very quick calculations, cleaning data, things like that, Excel is kind of an unbeatable tool, and you can't just use any spreadsheet application because there's a lot of advanced features in Excel that a data analyst will need to know how to use to be very proficient at their job. In addition to Excel, though, you also need to know how to acquire data from data sources, and for the most part, that's going to be databases, usually. That could be a SQL Server database, that could be something in the cloud like Azure or Amazon Web Services. You might use something like Snowflake. You may use something lower scale like Access or some other file-based database technology like SQLite. The fact of the matter is, though, is that you will probably be interfacing with many, if not all, of these different technologies, and you're going to need to know how to write a proper SQL query in order to extract that data. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to need to be a professional in Transact SQL. You probably won't be doing a lot of creating new data tables and updating and inserting records right away. These are some skills that you'll want to eventually add to your repertoire, your toolbox of different tools that you have. But in the very beginning, you'll at least need to be very good at pulling data from multiple tables within a database and knowing how to aggregate that data appropriately and making sure you're getting clean data sets. In addition to acquiring the data and then being able to clean it in a tool like Excel, you're also going to need to be able to communicate it. So for a larger scale company or a bigger establishment, you'll probably be using something that's a proprietary system like Tableau or Power BI, something to be able to take that data and put it in a graphical or usable dashboard type form and then communicate it from there. Companies with a little bit of a smaller footprint or data analysts with not quite as much experience might be using something like Excel, where you can still put charts and graphs together and you can still make reports, but it's important to note that Excel can only scale up so big when it comes to dashboards, and it becomes a little bit messy when trying to automate things there. It's much better to move to a larger system, but it's something that you'll need to be able to do. So if you have no other tool available to you, it's probably a good place to start designing dashboards in Excel, and then from there you'll want to move on to something else. So what kind of education background are you going to need to become a data analyst? Well, traditionally, you're going to need a 4-year degree. That's where I started 15 years ago, and that's where a lot of people that are in my position came from. The problem is that the demand for data analysts is far outstripping the supply. And because of that, we need to bring more people into the profession faster. So a number of companies, IBM and Google particularly, have come out with a course curriculum, a certification process, if you will, where you can take some online courses and then take a certification program through that company and then become a certified data analyst. These will cover the things that I spoke about earlier, but they'll also talk a little bit more about statistics, which is another branch of this field that you may want to go into. Now, there is another profession that's very closely related to data analysts that is called a data scientist. That typically is held for master's degrees and higher and does focus very much closer with statistics and machine learning. That profession will use Python and will use R, which are two different technologies. One is taught, Python is taught through the Google certification process. IBM goes with doing R. They're both very valuable. They both have their positions in this field. But I would also say that for your junior data analyst, it's very unlikely that you'll be using a lot of heavy statistics or heavy machine learning right out of the gate. It's much more likely that you're going to be focused in Excel and SQL and putting reports together in the beginning, and those more complicated processes like machine learning and statistics, those will probably come in a little bit later in your career. But reciting all of these ins and outs, these very basic facts and figures of becoming a data analyst and what we do, this is the boring part. As a matter of fact, it's kind of the elephant in the room for me, and that's that data analytics is boring. At least that's how society views us. Every time I have a barbecue or a birthday party for my kid, I have new people that come to my house and they ask me, "Chris, what do you do for a living?" And I go, "I'm a data analyst." And then their eyes roll into the back of their head and they start to glaze over a little bit. As I even say the S in SQL, they're already checked out. And that's because everyone thinks of data as boring. Because let's be honest, data itself is boring. There's a difference between data and information. Data is disparate, seemingly random. It's facts and figures and math, and it has no meaning. But in changing the data into information, well, now you've created something. You've taken what was meaningless and given it purpose. That's why I think, honestly, that I hate the name data analyst, because what are we doing? We're taking data, which is this kind of boring thing, and then we're the analyzers of data. So we get our microscopes, our magnifying glasses up, and well, we look at the boring thing. Well, clearly anybody that's willing to look at the boring thing themselves must be super boring, right? Well, this is not true. In fact, when I give my deliverables to my end users, usually they're like, "Wow, this is interesting. Thank you." Because what I've given them is information. I think the name data analyst is wrong. We shouldn't be calling ourselves data analysts. We should be calling ourselves information developers, because that's what we do. We take data, something that is random and somewhat garbage, and we turn garbage into gold. We are literally King Midas because we develop information. With this channel, that's kind of what I hope to address. I want to make something that's a little more interesting, a little more maybe entertaining, and do some projects and show some analysis of different facts and figures, and hopefully bring insight and hopefully just a little bit of entertaining value for whatever audience this channel can build. Again, my name is Chris. Welcome to my channel, and let's see if we can make data fun.